We are ready to talk about directions for review and preview 4.1.2. We start off with question number 16, which deals with some square tiles. It's a bit different from the frames that we looked at in our lesson along with this, but part A is asking you to write and simplify an expression involving addition that would be able to tell us all the number of squares that are possible. And part B asks us to do the same thing, write and simplify an expression, but this time it has to involve subtraction. So some things to keep in mind. Number one, whatever you have for part A and part B should be the same. The answer that you get in the end should be the same. We're using two different expressions to describe the same figure. The other thing to think about would be, how can I look at this arrangement and see it in pieces? One way you could address this is by looking at the rows. So I can say, all right, I see 3 rows that all have 6 tiles, and I see 2 rows that have only 4. So that could be one way of looking at it. You could also think about it in terms of the columns. If I look at it vertically, I can see that I have 4 columns with 5 tiles, and I can see there are 2 columns with 3 tiles. Another alternative would be to look at it as a whole. I can see that it's a 6 by 5 rectangle, but I've got this chunk in the middle that's missing. So think about what I can use here to help me come up with an expression for subtraction for part B, and then part A with addition. Question 17 shows us some different things here. For parts A, B, C, and D, they start us off with an expression. So they describe that as the counting method. My job is to match that counting method up with a word description and a diagram. So if I look at part A, it says 4 times 10 minus 4. So on my answer sheet for this part, whatever I decide is the best word description that matches part A, I'm going to write that number in the blank here next to part A. Whichever diagram I feel like best represents that counting method for part A, I'm going to write the capital letter of that diagram in this space. So it's a matching situation here, and we have to match 2 different things with our different counting methods over here on the left. So start with your expressions, label which word description, 1, 2, 3, or 4, matches up with them, and then your diagrams, A, B, C, or D. For question 18, we've got a histogram that shows us some different birthdays, and I think you'll find this one to be pretty simple. We're basically looking at each month, and on my answer sheet, my job would be to record the number of birthdays that there are in each of those months. For question 19, they ask you to read the math notes box for the lesson. They give you an overview about making a mixed number into a fraction greater than 1 that you may also know as an improper fraction. And it describes how we can take a fraction greater than 1, an improper fraction, and turn it into a mixed number, because those are the 2 things they're looking at here. So parts A and C are mixed numbers. Your job would be to change those into improper fractions. And parts B and D are already improper fractions. Your job would be to change those to mixed numbers. So again, check out the math notes box for some reminders on how that part works there. For question number 20, they give us some expressions, and they're asking you for 2 things. They're asking you, based on where the starting point is, if you look at the second term that's there, they're asking you, should we be moving to the left or should we be moving to the right? So that's the first answer I'm looking to see. Behind where it says direction, I'm either going to write left or right for that part. Then the other thing they're asking you for is the answer. So in other words, where will you end up after that move to the left or to the right? So when it says answer, I'm looking to see here's where you will land in the end.